Many entities are reevaluating their lease contracts over the course of the last several years upon adoption of 842. And the modification framework is one of the areas that we get a lot of questions. So, first, what is a modification? It's a change to any of the terms and conditions in the contract. And when the contract is modified, we'll have to work through the modification framework in 842 to determine the resulting accounting. So first, you need to make sure that the modified contract, still is or contains a lease. And so go back and go through the scoping to make sure that the arrangement still has a lease. Assuming that it still has a lease, then the modification needs to be evaluated as to determine whether or not it's treated as a separate contract. And the only time it's treated as a separate contract is if the modification, the only thing it does is adds an additional asset, so an additional right of use to the arrangement, and that additional right of use is sold at its standalone selling price. When those are the cases, then that incremental addition is treated as if it's its own contract and the remaining legacy contract remains in place. When this is not the case, so when a modification either extends or reduces the lease term, or if the modification grants an additional right of use asset, but it's not its standalone selling price, or if the modification only changes the consideration, then that modification should, the arrangement should be reevaluated for the classification as of the date of the modification by using updated terms and conditions, including an updated discount rate. And once you do that, you update your lease liability and a corresponding adjustment goes to the right of use asset. There is also a termination that is either a full or partial termination. So when you reduce what is thereafter the modification being used, we find these to be a little less common, but when that is the case, then the adjustment to the lease liability, there's a proportionate adjustment to the right of use asset in those full or partial termination fact patterns.